There's a number that decides whether you quit investing right before it starts paying you back. That number is $51,400. And here's the cruel part. Most people hit it right around year 10, which also happens to be the exact year most people give up. They walk away the moment the math finally turns in their favor, and they never even know it happened. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly which year that number shows up for you, and why the year you're most tempted to quit is the year you should absolutely not. Let's make this real instead of abstract. Picture a 28-year-old named Lisa. She opens a brokerage account, sets up an automatic transfer, and puts $300 a month into a broad market index fund. That's $3,600 a year. No stock picking, no trying to time the bottom, no checking her phone every time the market dips. Just $300 every month for 30 years straight. And we're going to use a real return of 7%, not the flashy 10% you hear quoted for the stock market, because that number quietly ignores inflation. Inflation eats about 3% of your money's purchasing power every single year, whether you notice it or not. So 7% is the honest number. It's what shows up later as more house, more freedom, more options at retirement. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. The human brain expects a straight line. You put in $300, you expect to feel roughly $300 richer. That's how effort works everywhere else in life. You mow the lawn looks mowed. But compound growth isn't a line. It's a curve. And for years, that curve hugs the straight contribution line so closely that the naked eye genuinely cannot tell them apart. Year 1. Lisa puts in $3,600. The market hands her back $118. For 12 months of automatic transfers, of saying no to little splurges, of actually following through, $118. It feels less like investing and more like being mocked. Year 3. Her gain for the entire year is around $700. That's about $60 a month. Less than a coffee subscription. Meanwhile, she's still shoveling in $300 a month of her own money, every single month, watching the gap between what she's paying in and what she's getting back barely move. Year 5. She's contributed $18,000 total. Her balance is $21,500. Her gain that year is $1,300, roughly $100 a month. She's officially beating inflation now. Technically, the machine is working, but emotionally, it still doesn't register as anything. And then there's year 10, the breaking point. Lisa has now contributed $36,000 of her own money. Her balance sits around $52,000. The market's gain in year 10 alone is about $3,400, still a hair under what she personally put in that same year. This is the moment. She sits down at her kitchen table with a calculator and does the honest math. A full decade of sacrifice, $36,000 out of her own pocket, and only $16,000 to show for it in actual gains. Her friends are bragging about some stock that doubled in a month. She feels like she played it too safe, like she followed all the rules and got a mediocre prize for it. This is exactly the moment most people close the account, or worse, just quietly stop contributing and let it drift. Here's the part almost nobody tells her. She's standing exactly 1 year away from the crossover. Because compounding doesn't run on what you put in, it runs on what's already sitting there, compounding on itself, whether you're watching or not. 7% of $1,000 is $700. 7% of $250,000 is $17,500. Same exact percentage, completely different outcome. The rate never changes. Only the size of the pile it's gripping onto changes. And for the first decade, that pile is simply too small to grip anything meaningful. You can actually write this on a napkin. Take your monthly contribution, annualize it, then divide by your expected return. $3,600 divided by 0.07 equals $51,429. That's the exact balance where the market's yearly gain finally matches what you're putting in with your own paycheck. Below that line, you are the engine doing all the work. Above that line, the market starts pulling its own weight beside you. Think of it as 3 rungs on a ladder. Rung 1 is the starter floor, anything under $51,400. Down here, your paycheck is doing more heavy lifting than your investments ever could. It feels like a glorified savings account because the growth is nearly invisible against the backdrop of your own contributions. Almost every account on Earth lives on this rung for its first decade, which is exactly why almost everyone quits right here, standing on the bottom rung, convinced the ladder doesn't lead anywhere. Rung 2 is the crossover, sitting right at $51,400. This is the first year the market's gain equals your personal contribution, dollar for dollar. The account officially starts pulling its own weight for the first time in its life. Rung 3 is what I'd call catching fire, around $277,000, which is exactly 5 times the crossover line. At that balance, a 7% return generates $18,000 a year, 5 times your original yearly contribution. Your paycheck becomes a rounding error next to what the market is doing on its own. You're not really funding the account anymore at that point. You're just watching it work, occasionally topping it off out of habit. Nobody explains the 3 rungs when you open your first account. You just get a login, a balance, and a vague promise that it'll be worth it eventually. So people judge rung 1 by the standards of rung 3, get discouraged, and walk away right before the ladder does the interesting part. It's a little like judging a rocket launch by the first 10 feet off the pad. That's the slowest, heaviest, least impressive part of the entire flight. And it's also the part that convinces most people to go home. Now, here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Not every dollar you invest is worth the same amount, even though it says the same number on the statement. A dollar Lisa puts in during year 1 has 30 full years to compound, and it grows into roughly $8 by the finish line. A dollar she puts in during the very last month is still worth exactly $1 because it never got the chance to grow. Same denomination, wildly different value, depending entirely on timing. Run the numbers and it gets almost unfair. The $18,000 Lisa contributes in her first 5 years alone quietly grows into $123,000 by year 30. Meanwhile, the $54,000 she contributes over her last 15 years, 3 times as much money going in, only grows to $95,000. Less money invested earlier ends up worth more than triple the amount invested later. That's not a typo, and it's not a trick of the math. That's simply what time does when you give it enough runway. And here's the number that should actually scare you a little. If Lisa had waited just 1 extra year to start, 29 instead of 28, skipping that first $3,600 contribution costs her $28,000 by the finish line. Read that again. 1 missed year, $28,000 gone, permanently, 30 years later. The most expensive year in investing isn't a market crash. It's the year you didn't show up at all. So what happens after year 10, once Lisa hits that painful, discouraging crossroads at her kitchen table? From here, there are 2 paths, and they look almost identical for a while. Path 1, she quits contributing, but doesn't touch the money. She just walks away, sets it and forgets it, and leaves that $52,000 alone to do whatever it does. By year 30, sitting completely untouched, it grows into $210,000, purely on its own, with 0 additional effort from her. Path 2, she does nothing heroic. No windfall, no lucky pick. She just keeps adding $300 a month. Same as always, same boring routine. By year 30, her balance is $366,000. The gap between quietly stopping and quietly continuing? $156,000, just for not stepping off the line when it felt pointless. And by the way, that final stretch is where the math gets almost absurd. By year 30, Lisa has put in $108,000 of her own money across 3 full decades. Her balance is $366,000. Her market gain in year 30 alone is $24,500, almost 7 times what she personally contributed that single year, and bigger than her entire first decade of gains combined. Past this point, the account roughly doubles every 10 years, just on the strength of the market itself, not because she's doing anything smarter or different. Simply because she never left. Now, let's be honest about how this can break down in real life, because perfect math on a napkin doesn't always survive contact with reality. If you need that money early, say a house down payment at year 12, you walk away with about $67,000. You're cashing out right at the floor of the climb, right before the exponential part kicks in. Compounding is brutally unforgiving to early exits because the biggest gains sit at the very end of the curve, not the beginning. Fees matter more than most people ever bother to check. A seemingly tiny 1% expense ratio left running quietly for 30 years erases $65,000 from that final balance. That's roughly 17% of Lisa's total wealth, handed over to fees she probably never even noticed on a statement. Returns matter too, and they're not guaranteed. Drop the real return from 7% down to 5%, and the crossover line jumps from $51,400 all the way up to $72,000. The 30-year balance falls from $366,000 down to $250,000. Same discipline, same $300 a month, meaningfully smaller outcome. And here's the one that should motivate anyone watching this in their 30s or 40s, the late starter tax. If you wait until 43 to begin, you cannot simply try harder to catch up to someone who started at 28. To match what Lisa built, a 43-year-old would need to invest $600 a month, double Lisa's contribution, for $184,000 of their own money just to reach a number Lisa hit by contributing $108,000 total. The tax on waiting isn't paid in effort or discipline. It's paid in cold, hard cash. Because time is the one ingredient you genuinely cannot buy back once it's gone. So if you're sitting somewhere around year 8, 9, or 10 right now, staring at a balance that feels embarrassingly small compared to everything you've put in, that's not proof it's broken. That's the exact signature of the curve right before it turns in your favor. The crossover isn't a rumor or a motivational slogan. It's a formula. Your yearly contribution divided by your expected return. Do that math for your own numbers, tonight if you can, and you'll know precisely which year belongs to you. And once you know that number, the whole decade stops feeling like a slog with no evidence it's working. It becomes a countdown. Every flat, boring, invisible year on rung 1 isn't wasted time. It's the part of the climb where the pile is quietly being built underneath you, dollar by unglamorous dollar, so that the years after it can do something a paycheck never could on its own. If this changed how you think about the year 10 wall, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a like so more people see this before they quit at year 9, and tell me in the comments, what year is your personal crossover line? Let's do the math together.